Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 131. Jerry HAMZA, the Outdoor Chronicles, bow hunting, and battling lymphoma. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Dr. Carl Miller, and you're listening to my favorite hunting podcast on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hi, this is Todd Mead, author of Backcountry Bucks and outdoor writer. Get ready for another amazing podcast with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Hunting Podcast.
This is Audrey Foffey from Monarch Whitetail Nutrition, LLC, and you're about to listen to my number one podcast of all time, Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. My name is Jay, and I'm in New Hampshire, and my good friend Dusty Phillips is over there on the other line, sitting in his studio, in his Big Buck Podcast studio in Ohio. What's happening, Dusty?
Oh, just trying to get everything ready to go to the ATA.
It is right around the corner, my friend. We will be engaging in some ATA activities, bourbon and whitetail hunting in Ohio.
Oh, I can't wait, Jay.
Dream come true, brother. Finally put it all together. Got Greg coming down from New Hampshire with me. We've got Jim Keller coming down from Michigan. Dude, it's just going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be an intense week, you know. And Greg and yourself being able to come here to Ohio and get 3 days of whitetail hunting in. I just can't wait for it to happen. And, you know, it's going to be epic, really.
It is going to be an epic situation. I kicked off a little of the Kentucky spirit last night as we entered into the new year by drinking some of the Pappy Van Winkle that my good friend Bruce brought over, so I'm ready to go. I had my taste of some bourbon.
Yeah, I did see that you were sipping on some bluegrass.
Yes, sir. Some fine whiskey. So I'm looking forward to some more of that, and looking forward to our guest today, who's Jerry HAMZA. Wrote a book called Outdoor Chronicles, True Tales of a Lifetime of Hunting and Fishing. So Jerry reached out to us a little while ago and said, hey, I'd like to be on your podcast. And we don't let everybody on the show, but we certainly pick the interesting ones that have a story to tell about the outdoors. And our first prerequisite, obviously, is that you have to be a hunter of some sort, but more importantly, a deer hunter. So I read through his book, picked out some good chapters, and brought that to the podcast to see what, in Jerry's own words, he could relay to us. And we get into Jerry's whole life, his battle with lymphoma, and we also get into some of the stuff he carries in his backpack and his strategies on deer hunting. In fact, Jerry brings us into his basement, which is the first for you here on the podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and he shares some factual information on actually what he's hunting with by going into his basement and pulling all of his products out and being able to read the labels right there to us, Jay.
It was pretty funny. So he's a good guy. He's been in the entertainment industry. So kick back and listen to somebody that spent a lifetime in the outdoors.
Yeah, before we start the show, Jay, let's get Jim Keller on for the deer news.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the deer news. This week's episode, we'll be talking about the top 5 deer and deer hunting stories of 2015 as reported by OutdoorHub.com. To wrap up the year 2015, we thought we would report on what OutdoorHub.com rated as the best deer and deer hunting stories of 2015. To keep you in suspense, we'll start with number 5 and work our way to the top story. Story number 5. In this story, a bear was recorded attacking a deer on the lawn of a Colorado home. The video is somewhat graphic and not for everyone. The homeowner did eventually shut off the camera and chased the bear off with a shotgun in hand. The fate of the deer is unknown. This brings up an interesting point. New and unusual pictures and videos will likely be topics in future news stories as well. With most everyone carrying a cell phone capable of capturing pictures and videos, unique situations will continue to be recorded and reported as they occur. In addition, the increased use of trail cameras will also enable us to view pictures and videos never captured captured before. Story number 4. The first ever Wisconsin mule deer is taken by a bow hunter. State wildlife officials in Wisconsin have confirmed that the state's first ever mule deer harvest did occur in November. Randy Haynes legally harvested the deer near Amory, Wisconsin. Wisconsin does not have a natural mule deer herd, and the deer is believed to have escaped from a captive herd or possibly migrated to Wisconsin from South Dakota. Story number 3. The legendary Oregon mule deer, Buck Norris, was found dead. Buck Norris was a legendary mule deer who made his home, ironically, near the Nosler bullet manufacturing plant in Bend, Oregon. He possessed a massive, non-typical rack with upwards of 20 points. The wild buck had eluded hunters in the area for 10 years and was a favorite of shed hunters and wildlife watchers who were fortunate enough to capture pictures of him in the off-season. The legendary deer, unfortunately, was hit by a car in June. The buck's primary range had been within the Bend city limits, which helped his longevity, but also eventually played a part in causing his death. Top story number 2. This story takes place in Texas, where a 14-year-old hunter took a very rare black whitetail buck. Brooke Bateman harvested this buck while hunting with her father in Stevens County, Texas in late November. The black color is caused by a rare condition called melanism. Melanism occurs more in central Texas than anywhere else in the world. Historically, an average of about 1 black deer a year is harvested. This was the first buck Brooke had ever harvested. In this top story for 2015, a 300-inch Ohio buck is in consideration for the number 2 Pope and Young record book buck. Dan Kaufman harvested this buck near Junction City, Ohio in October. The deer grossed 305/8 inches. The current Pope and Young world record buck is 294 inches net and was also taken in Ohio by Michael Beatty in 2000. Dan's buck may also be the largest deer ever taken on film. Dan is slated to appear with his buck at the 2016 Archery Trade Show. Check out OutdoorHub.com for additional details on each of these stories. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about this topic, please email me at jim@BigBuckRegistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Very good. Thanks to Jim with the Deer News. And let's get on to our guest of the night, Jerry HAMZA. Jerry HAMZA, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing great, and I want to thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we're psyched to have you, man. You've spent some time in the field, and we relate to people that spend a lot of time outdoors. And you wrote a book about the whole journey, Outdoor Chronicles, True Tales of a Lifetime of Hunting and Fishing, and thank you for sending me a copy of that, by the way. I had quite an enjoyable time going through it and finding some of those stories that relate to me and my buddy Dusty in Ohio and every listener that listens to this podcast. And
that's why I wrote it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I have a bunch of questions. I'd like to kind of go through some of those stories and, not obviously reread the book, but kind of ask you about a couple of the things we picked up on in that book and talk more about why you wrote the book, how you got there, some of the things that inspired you.
Let's do it.
All right. So, Jerry, where are you right now?
I am, I'm home, getting ready for the holidays. I live in Pittsford, New York, which is a suburb of Rochester, New York, right on the South Shore of Lake Ontario.
Okay. All right. And have you called that area home for a long time?
No, I've been here for, about 3 years. I used to have a farm in just west of here by about 45 minutes. I used to grow apple trees, but, I had been diagnosed and under remission with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, so I decided that maybe I didn't want to spray apple trees anymore.
I always assume spraying the apple trees is not great for having that type of situation, right?
No, right. No, it's they're bad. You play with bad chemicals. The whole food industry is that way, and I'm not here to preach. I still eat stuff, but I just don't want to spray it.
I hear you. Did you grow up there as well? I mean, are you from New York originally?
Yeah, and my family has been in the Rochester area, and then I moved out to the farm, in my early 20s, and then like I said, I just moved back.
Gotcha. You mentioned in your book that your family grew up in the entertainment industry. Is that correct?
Yeah. Back in the day, my grandfather started when he was a young man putting on school dances and hiring guys like Benny Goodman and Duke Ellington, and it grew from there. I
was mentioning or read some parts of this, and it said that your grandfather and father spent some time promoting country music.
Yeah, they represented the Northeast in the country, and for years it was. I didn't know everybody didn't go over to Johnny Cash's house or had it in Loretta Lynn or something. But, they were very instrumental in the industry, and they were also very instrumental in the setting up of the Country Music Association in the early days. If you're so inclined, you can go and Google some of the old Billboard magazine ads and articles, and you'll see a lot of the shows they put on and stuff. It's it was a unique way to grow up. Like I said, I didn't know other people didn't do that.
Right. So you had the Loretta Lynn's lipstick on your cheek. Conway Twitty was messing up your hair, and George Jones would make your grandmother kind of choke up, or grandfather get choked up when he was leaving. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
It's kind of a nice story. My grandfather, his health was failing, and pretty much out of the kindness of his heart, George Jones did one small tour with him. I think it was more of a thank you for everything he ever did. And, it was emotional.
So it's very interesting. I mean, those are some huge names for country music, and you just kind of hung out with them when you were a kid. That's crazy.
Yeah. And Johnny Cash was, not only being able to meet and talk with Johnny over the, I ended up loving his music, so it was even,
right.
It was even cooler, And one of my stories, I don't even know if that story's out. That may be in the next book, but no. You should read Eastern Steelhead when you get a chance, because there's a strong Johnny Cash reference in that story.
All right, I'm a big Johnny Cash fan, so I'm down with that. So I take it that you're an outdoorsman, and this is what the book's all about. So you describe yourself as not exactly a cyber techno geek. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, no, I'm as a young boy, my parents were constantly getting me out of the house, which was a great thing, because I learned to love the outdoors. And I think the outdoors' mortal enemy is technology, and I've never really liked it much. The more people get plugged in with this virtual reality that we live, the less time they seem to have to go outside and do the things they're supposed to do, to hear the cadence and the rhythm of the true nature.
Yeah. So how do you feel about online dating, now that we're on that subject matter?
It's, I don't understand it. I just don't get it. It's hard enough, trying to go out with people, I can't imagine, to talk about roulette, I think you're safer with a gun.
Yeah. You describe yourself.
Go ahead.
You described in your book, you're trying to write the paragraph that described yourself when you tried online dating, and you said it didn't work out so good. And you called yourself an avid outdoorsman, but then crossed out avid. Why'd you do that?
Because, when you think about the word avid, what does it mean? It's probably one of the most understood and overused words in our language. Avid. What does that mean? That you liked it? Well, if you're a sportsman, it should be given. It's just a bad qualifier. We in our language, we've gotten to this point now where language used to be about saying what you meant, and now language is about trying to cover up what you mean. It's all has to do with the political correctness and being hypersensitive to everybody's emotional reality, and it's crap.
Yeah. So what's your earliest recollection of the outdoors?
Oh, there's a couple of things. As a young boy, I remember going fishing with my father up in the Thousand Islands, and there was a smallmouth bass feeding on the top water, and I threw a spin into the bass, and it hit it. And then the other thing is I don't come from hunters, and so I'm kind of an anomaly. I have always had this desire to hunt. So one of my earliest memories of the outdoors is I remember I was less than 10 years old. I had saved up enough money for a wrist rocket, and I would go rabbit hunting, mostly unsuccessfully with the wrist rocket. Now, if you were the rabbit that ended up in the stew pot, you were like 1 in 1,000.
And there are lots
I missed 999 before.
There are a lot of bunnies out there, man. So I get that. So, what did you find about the outdoors that was so necessary? I think a lot of people are exposed to the outdoors, but some people take to it more than others, and there's always a meaning there, something that it has to have a good feeling of some sort. What is it for you? What was the one thing?
Well, it speaks to me. It speaks to me in a very human, evolutionary way. As a species, depending on who you listen to, you can almost justify at least 3 million years worth of evolution outside. And that's hardwired into us. We've only been going to the grocery store for about 150 years and buying meat from the grocery store. And it's far less amount of time that we've been getting meat in little pink styrofoam packages of cellophane over them. So right. I hear this call that is in me. It's part of who I am as a human being, as an animal on the planet. And when I get outside, I hear the rhythms and cadences of the planet, and the way it was supposed to be. The American Native Americans were very spiritual when it came to listening to the true rhythms of nature, and I guess that's what I plug into.
Yeah, I get that. I plug into that as well. Now, a lot of the book that you wrote has to do with being outdoors, but you've done a lot of fishing, a lot of fly fishing, which I think is a fabulous sport, by the way. I enjoy that myself. But you're also a hunter, and it sounds like you hunted a bunch of different species, but we wanted to talk to you and pick your brain about deer hunting tonight, if that's cool. That's kind of what we're into here at the Big Buck Registry.
Yeah.
And
I love deer hunting. Whitetail hunting is bow hunting for whitetail is it could be the thing I love most.
Interesting. Above even fly fishing.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I tell people about it, and it's just a necessity of the way things work. I can fly fish all year long. If I stretch out my bow hunting season the best I can, going different places and stuff, I'm maybe going to get 8 weeks and 12 weeks, and which is inconceivable because you're moving around a lot then. So it's just there's a discrepancy in the amount of time you can participate. I love to go to the range and shoot my bow and stuff, but it's not the same as being on a stand live.
Gotcha. Where did you do most of your deer hunting?
I did most of my deer hunting. I owned my farm for a quarter of a century, and it had 180 acres of apple trees, and you can imagine that's a magnet for deer. I had about 50 acres I kept in heavy red brush, so it would serve as a refuge for the deer, and I wouldn't let anybody hunt that. And so there was always nice deer, and the smart deer, would hang out in the red brush, and the less smart deer would end up on my meat bowl.
Yep, that's usually the way it works out.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you do any deer hunting in Maine?
Yes, I still have a place in Maine, and Maine is a wonderful outdoor state. The deer there are just beautiful. They're big-bodied, and you can run into some humongous racks. As a matter of fact, one of my close friends is a guide up in Maine, and his grandfather shot the Gould Hill buck, which is, I think it's one of the top 25 of all time.
I'd read that in your book. You had mentioned that it was number one for quite a while, correct?
Yeah. It's in the Cabela's, I believe, in Portland now, the head.
Wow.
And it's unbelievable buck. But so Maine has a capability. The downside to Maine is it has a much smaller carrying capacity than most people. You're in New Hampshire, so you're sort of like halfway in between New York and Maine, not only distance-wise, but I think in the way whitetail play out.
I like Maine a lot. It's a lot like New Hampshire, especially some of the places that I go, and certainly have a respect for Maine. It can be big country. It can be kind of rugged country too, but one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah, well, there's different levels to the outdoors, and I think that's a good thing because certain people want to take it on different levels, but Maine can get you in that top level where you have to have real outdoor skills, like to know how to get back home.
Yeah.
and how to maybe survive if you get stuck overnight and stuff. So it's that top level. You can slip into there pretty good, and it can be dangerous. That's one of the things. It's a good lesson, I think, that we live in a dangerous world.
That's one of the things that I was taught very early is like, figure out how to get home. That's probably your number one goal. But if you can't and you have to stay overnight, figure out how to make a fire. So those are the two things that you're going to need to know if you're going to be an outdoorsman in either northern New Hampshire or all of Maine. So those are the two skill sets that I developed the most.
You're absolutely right. I just got a Christmas present from somebody. It was an old copy of Jack London's To Build a Fire. So
there you go.
That's a good story for everybody starting the outdoors. It lets you know how important fire is.
There you go. So bow hunting, it was...
And I always put lighters in everything I have. There's always a lighter in my pocket.
Always picking up a good lighter no matter where I am. That's one of those things. Just could have enough of them. So bow hunting has become one of your passions, like some of your other passions, fly fishing, for example. But there was a moment in...
I truly love it.
We love bow hunting as well. But there was a moment in August 2011 in a hotel room in Prince Edward Island. You were shaving and something happened. You want to describe that?
Yeah, I'd gotten up that morning, I was shaving, and, as men will know that those of us who shave on a daily basis, you get an intimate relationship with your face, and you know every bump and curve.
Yeah.
Well, I had a bump on the left side of my lower jaw. It was about half the size of a pea, and it was hard and immovable. And I worried a little bit about it, not much. I said, I don't know what it is. I better get it checked out. And whoever hears this, let this be a lesson in erring on the side of caution. You better look foolish to your doctor than to not look at all. I ended up going to my dentist, who looked at it, and actually I'm friends with my dentist, so he's like, oh, don't worry about it. But in the same breath, he had me meet an oral surgeon that afternoon. Mm. So I suspect he suspected something. And they took a biopsy, and a couple weeks later, my life was changed forever. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was lucky. I caught it early, but I went through a lot of radiation and a lot of chemotherapy, and it's a game changer.
You continued to pursue the outdoors, as I read, and you had some challenges along the way. You want to tell us about some of the challenges?
Yeah, let me tell you something. When you face your own mortality, you start to think a lot more than you about things than you usually do. And there was a real, I guess you'd call it a crisis of conscience. One of the things, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but I'm going to talk about it all.
Sure.
Is, here you are dying. And that's what's happening when you have cancer. Now, you can interrupt nature's plan in that event, but if you don't, you're dying. So here you are dying. And, you're confronting mortality. And one of the questions that comes up, you think very differently about harvesting other life. And, I had to reconcile that. And I finally did. I finally figured out that, like the wolf and like the lion, and I'm on this planet, and I'm here at the top of the food chain, and I should take my place. The other part was, in confronting the illness with the treatments and stuff, and just mentally, this happened right in the beginning of bow season. And so, I made a decision that I was going to not let that change me. So I continued to bow hunt, and it was kind of odd because, as the cancer progressed, and also on the other side of the coin was the chemotherapy kicks the heck out of you.
Yeah.
And so my ability to hunt was diminishing almost daily. And so it was, and I do talk about that in the stories, the struggle to keep in the stand and to make ethical decisions.
It sounded like you had some encounters with what was a 150 class buck while you were weakening. Your strength was not where it was, and it sounded like it affected your shot abilities. You want to describe that?
Yeah. Yeah, every year there was always the buck on the property, and some years one would show up you never saw because that's how the power sex works. But one of the things, you're always practicing, and you know what your range is. One of the things you don't take into effect is that you might be getting weaker fast. We're used to eyesight going over years and maybe, losing a step off your fastball but with the cancer it was rapid. So I had this beautiful 150 class buck present a shot. He was less than 20 yards away, probably like 10 yards. And I totally blew it, it just was that my ability to pull back, 65 pounds on a bow when it wasn't there anymore. And so I was struggling and shaking, and the arrow went wide. I think a couple times I missed him.
Yeah, you described that, and to the point where you felt defeated almost, like it drained you. No confidence left is how you describe it. You describe it in the book.
Yeah, well, that's how it is. I think it's a natural progression in hunting in general. When we're young, and we're striving to be competent with the tools we choose to hunt with, and we think we've gained a competency over them, and then we go, I don't know, unless you got, just nerves of steel. We all have to deal with buck fever at some point, and you get past all that. And after a while, you're a mature outdoorsman, and things usually turn out the way they're supposed to. But when you mixed in the disease and the mix, it took all that away, and it rattles you.
And how did you fight through it mentally? Feeling defeated and losing your confidence, especially in the woods, if you're an outdoorsman and that's part of your life. How did you fight through it?
I'm stubborn as hell. I have a stubborn streak, and I played to that. When I went for the chemotherapy, which is, it's not one session, it's many sessions. They like to put a port into your body, and I wouldn't let them do that because I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to, it's just a way of looking at things and a mental toughness. And in the outdoors, I use my brain, and I tried to change the game back so the odds were in my favor again. I took poundage off the bow and put myself in a position to get close shots that were high percentage, and that maybe at 40 pounds I could be successful.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So you spent quite a few years deer hunting with your bow, and bow hunting is no joke. It tests all your skills. You have to be stealth. You have to eliminate scent. You have to know how to play the wind. There's lots of elements that come into play that using a gun you can overcome it with a gun. You have to be close to get to the deer that you can kill. So you have a skill set that you've built up over the years, and you've done it for a long time. So I'd be curious, and I'd like to have Dusty kind of take the reins here to find out what types of things you used in the woods, what type of techniques and strategies and devices, things you put in your backpack that you brought into your woods to make that happen. Dusty, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into a little bit about, do you carry a backpack to the woods?
I carry a very small pack. It's more along the lines of a fanny pack.
Well, let's hear what you got in this fanny pack.
I have an extra rangefinder because I drop mine occasionally. And I have an extra release in case my release goes bad. And I usually have a piece of fruit. And, sometimes it just depends on how I feel. Sometimes I do take some more scent control because in my mind, especially with bow hunting, if you can take your scent out of the game, you've turned the tables quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
If they can't smell you, they'll stand there and look at you. You can be, I've had instances where I was, 10 feet away from a deer that I just couldn't figure out what I was because I knew he couldn't scent me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I had good camo on. If you break up your outline, I think that's it. It's scent in breaking up your outline. If you can do those two things, you're mostly there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more to that. Is there any other particular things that you have in your fanny pack?
It just depends. If it's during a rut, sometimes I'll bring a little bleat box or a grunt call.
Any particular grunt call you use?
No, I don't like, I like the boxes where I can turn them over. I've got a couple grunt calls down in the basement. I have to go look. I just buy them and use them. I don't usually, I use them more to stop animals than I do to bring them in.
Gotcha. Okay.
I used to rattle a lot, and then I found out I was scaring bucks away because they figured the dominant buck was in it. And I'm sure it's this way in a lot of the country. Overwhelmingly, I'd say that, 85% of the bucks where I hunt are under 120. And so if you sound like you're a bigger deer, you're gonna scare everybody but the biggest guy away. And if he's not in the neighborhood, you're not gonna see anything.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. And some instances grunt calls work great, and others are rattling works great, and others rattling ain't worth a dang. So we got into your fanny pack. I want to talk a little bit about your camouflage. What kind of camo gear do you wear?
I like a lot of the, and I always hesitate to mention manufacturers, but with camouflage, you almost have to. I like a lot of what Realtree is out. They've just kind of good way of breaking up your silhouette. To me, that's the big thing. I sometimes, depending on how far along the season, I'll wear a different pair of pants. I'll wear pants that might blend in with the bark of the tree more, and the shirt might be leafy-ish. It just depends on where my stand is and stuff. But I really like the patterns Realtree has out.
Gotcha. Okay. Any particular boots that you like to wear while you're hunting?
Yeah. Again, I guess we're going to have to use name brands, and I just
let's get it.
I'm not getting any checks in the mail from any of these people, so I guess the people listening can say, maybe there's something to it. I'm a big fan of Irish Setter. Okay, yeah. I've got two pairs of Irish Setter boots. One is 30 years old, and I've hunted elk in the West, and I've gone to Africa, and I almost don't wear the newer set because the old set is comfortable and works great.
And you said 30 years old. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe 25, somewhere in there. That's it. I mean, they have some signs of aging, like the little loops you put your fingers through in the back are not loops anymore. They're tabs.
No kidding.
That's what I'm saying. They make a great pair of boots because I bang the heck out of them.
Wow, that's one heck of a pair of boots right there by far. That's a 10-fold pair of boots. How about that?
That's a one good pair of boots is right.
Wow, Irish Setters, 25 years old, and it sounds like they've been around the world.
No, they have. There's some parts of them they're not as waterproof as they used to be, but I put some link oil on them, and they keep getting me through a day or two.
If they could tell stories, could we hear some great stories out of your boots?
Yeah. They probably do better than I would. It's a good thing they can't write.
So we got into your fanny pack, we got into your camo, and we got into your favorite hunting boots, and I'm super impressed by them boots, by the way. What kind of tree stands or ground blinds? What do you do there? Are you a tree stand type of hunter? Or are you a ground blind hunter?
No, if I'm with a bow, I prefer a tree stand, and I like to be in a 2-man stand if I can, because it just gives me, I can change my angle enough. It gives me room to work, and so, I just like a nice 2-man stand. I don't do good with height, so I don't like to be above 15 feet. I know there's some guys that will go up 21 feet and stuff. I start getting nervous.
Right. Yeah. We always ask them if they get nosebleeds when they're way up there.
And I just like to be a little closer to the action. That's also a big deal with bow hunting.
Right. Absolutely. What kind of bow are you shooting? Not to be bringing up name brands, but we got to get into this.
No. Right now, I have a bow that I'm absolutely in love with. It's a Matthews Helium. Huh. I never was a big fan of Matthews before I shot the Helium. It was the first Matthews that had a real good back wall to it, and it's just been. I'm just lethal with it. I don't miss. and some of these guys change their bows every year, but I'm gonna hang on to this one for a while until somebody demonstrates there's something I can be a lot better with.
Right, yeah. And I'm assuming that you're shooting carbon fiber arrows.
Yeah, I don't know if bow hunting is all about names. The Easton arrows with the small diameter, I guess what do they call it? The G series, with the what is it? The G6 heads that screw into the shaft. It's a long. Bear with me. I'm heading down to. One of the things about chemo is you don't remember everything perfectly like you used to. So
no, I completely understand.
Sure, yeah.
I'm heading out to where I've got a couple arrows, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I hunt with because I think it's important.
That's what we like to hear. We like to hear things that bring success to the table for other hunters.
Well, at first I didn't think it mattered much. I thought we were splitting hairs, but that's not the case with these arrows. They're, like I said, it's an Easton injection arrow. I don't know if you've heard of the injections, and that's what I'm shooting is a 3-fletched Easton injection.
Gotcha. Get into a little bit about your reasoning why you like the arrows so much.
Penetration. I mean, they just tear through everything. You can go through shoulder blades, everything. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to tempt the fates and I'm going to get really pissed at myself, but I haven't lost an animal with these injection arrows yet.
All right. Knock on wood. Knock on wood on that one.
Yeah. I'm knocking now.
What kind of broadhead are you tipping the arrow with?
That's the only problem with the injection arrows is, you have limited broadhead. So they're all good. I don't want to sound like I'm promoting parts. Promoting manufacturers, but, the Grim Reaper, I like anything, I'm a fixed blade guy.
Okay.
And so, maybe I don't have that name right. Is Grim Reaper fixed blade head?
That sounds familiar.
Mm.
We're going to take.
You know what, guys? I'm going down into my basement. We're going to talk about gear.
Now we're getting into it.
I'm going to have it all at my fingertips.
Beautiful.
Right, that's a problem. That's a problem I have. I got to know, and that's a real problem that I.
As we dissect world-class deer hunters, we need to know what they use.
Yeah, well, the injection arrows, they're faster. They penetrated good. We took them out and we had some gel contraptions, and I was getting 4 or 5 inches more penetration than the next best deal.
Wow,
that's a big deal to me.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, really. And this is on.
I took these arrows to Africa, and I don't know if you've ever seen an eland in person.
No.
But they're huge. They're maybe, I don't know, they've got to be twice the size of an elk. Actually, when they start coming in on you, and you feel like it almost is so surreal. It's like a cartoon. You're thinking, oh my God. Okay, here's the broadheads I've been shooting. Nap makes a deep 6. Is what it's called. And it's a fixed blade. Pardon?
Say the name of the company that makes it.
NAP, N-A-P.
Okay, MAP. Okay, M-A-P. Okay, carry on.
It's called a Deep 6. It's got a 1 1/8 inch cutting diameter. It's the blades are offset, so you get a nice rotation, and it's been flawless. And, everybody's got their own style. So right. I don't know how much that plays into things, but with the helium and the solid back wall and the narrow diameter arrows with the nap heads, it's just a great setup. So now I'm in my basement. So any questions on equipment? This is the place.
All right.
You said I'm going to touch base on something. You said you use a little bit of scent control. Let's hear some brands of scent control that you use. I like the scent killer. It's I'm trying to see who makes this. It's a scent killer right on the thing. It's a Wildlife Research Center. Gotcha.
Yep. They have a scent killer clothing wash, which I like to wash my clothes in that, and then I'll put them in everybody's got their own thing. I've got a scent proof bag. I think it's a Tinks bag, but you can buy whatever one you want. So what I always do is I put all my clothes that I'm going to wear, and then I put them in the control bag. And sometimes, like, for instance, when I was hunting the apple orchards, I'd cut a couple apples in half and put them in. And I have on and off through the years, I can't tell if it works or not, but I put dough and heat on my boots before I walk in. I just don't want to smell like a human. So, some guys will use, at one time there was a scent control that smelled like ragweed, and it was pretty good, but it was a locally manufactured product, and I don't think they're making it anymore.
Okay, interesting. So it actually smelled like the milkweed.
Yeah, it was a kind of it smelled like ragweed.
Oh, ragweed. Okay.
I guess ragweed. So I guess if you have an allergy, it's not exactly what you wanted, but it worked good. I don't know, but like I said, I was buying it at a local archery shop, and it just disappeared. I don't know if he stopped carrying it or the guy stopped making it because it was in homemade bottles and stuff.
Right. So interesting. So we got into all your gear, and we got into your camouflage and your tree stand and a pair of boots that's 25 plus years old that's still working pretty well. I'm going to let Jay turn it over to Jay and let him take us on one of your most memorable hunts.
Yeah. So one of the things, Jerry, that we like to hear when people join us on the shows, we like to hear a good deer story. It's kind of one of our quintessential things that we love to do. And I was wondering if you could pick one of your deer hunts that you were on. Is there one hunt in particular that pops into your head when I say what's your most memorable deer hunt?
Yeah, there is. I had gone one time to buy a boat off a guy, and I bought the boat off him. He said he'd done everything. I checked the front soft plugs, and they were replaced. Well, he never replaced the back soft plug. So anyway, I'm out in the middle of Lake Ontario trolling for salmon, and the back plug is low, and I'm really angry at this guy. I want to go and let him know what I think and stuff.
And what year is this, Jerry?
This is maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
So anyhow, he comes out, and he's an old guy. He's in his 70s somewhere. And he said, well, I'll help you with it. He was an old charter boat captain. Well, to make a long story short, we ended up being wonderful friends. He had sons that owned land, but they wouldn't let their own father hunt on their land. So his name was Don. And so I said, Don, you can hunt on my land. So every day he was at my house, either cutting shooting lanes in the property or putting up stands, or, I'd be asleep and I'd hear Don on the tractor. Don's here. I'd come downstairs, he'd be under my sink fixing my sink. And
just randomly?
So, well, yeah, if needed. If he'd get himself a glass of water and it might have dripped or something, that's how he was. He was, I guess I adopted a grandfather or something.
Right.
Well, what, he was getting up there, and, he was supposed to have some surgery for, I think it was a hernia or something, but, he's acting a little weird this one season. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, nothing. I said, are you seeing anything when you're out there? I said, is something going on I should know about? No, nothing you should know about. Well, I was bow hunting in Colorado for elk on opening day, and I was coming in, and this was 5 o'clock in the west, and my daughter was on the phone. She goes, Don hasn't come back yet, and that was 8 o'clock here. And I said to her, you got to call the sheriff. And so the sheriff came out, and they found Don. He had killed a deer and had a heart attack and was lying right next to the deer. And he had passed away in one of my fields hunting. He went the way everybody should go who likes to hunt, by the way.
Yeah.
And so it was like the day before Thanksgiving, and I was in my stand, and all of a sudden this buck comes walking out, and it ended up scoring almost 180. It was 177, and I knew that's the deer Don was chasing. He wasn't telling me about. And so I arrowed the deer, and I had him mounted and called him the heart attack deer.
The heart attack buck. Gotcha. Wow.
That's right.
That's well, I think
that's touching.
That's very touching. And if that's, I think that all great outdoorsmen should go that way. That's just the way I'd want to go too. Yeah. Yep. I'm with you on that. That's quite a memorable hunt. You'll never forget that one. That's for sure. I don't think I'm going to forget that one from here on out.
No, that's a good hunting story.
Yep. So there are a few questions I like to ask of our guests and just kind of pick their brain a little bit. Here's one I wanted to run by you. This is a quote. I want to see if you know who said this. It says, "Have you ever noticed that anybody driving slower than you is an idiot and anyone going faster is a maniac?"
Yeah, that's my old boss, George Carlin.
George Carlin, that is correct, sir. Now, you and George are good buddies, from what I take it.
I spent 30 years in his management, as part of his management, and I traveled on the road with him wherever he went. So it's hard yet, when you do that, you spend more time with each other than you do your own family. So you develop a certain camaraderie, closeness.
Sure. Now, was he a funny man off the stage too? Was he just a normal guy?
He wasn't as forceful on stage, but he was very funny. We all look at the world straight on. George looked at it somewhere out in left field. And that's what made him funny. His view of the world, he just was seeing it from a different place than most of us see it.
This is true.
He was very funny in person, just gentler.
Yeah.
Real nice guy, human.
I was a big fan of his, I wish he was still around today. He was great.
Yeah.
So looking back over your life, and writing a book now about your travels and experiences, knowing what you know today, what would you tell the 20-year-old Jerry HAMZA?
Patient. Be patient. Have the patience to see things develop. In life, the best things unfold slowly. It takes almost a year for a human being to be born. So I would, if I could speak to 20-year-old Jerry HAMZA, I would tell him that things are going to work out. You just have to be patient.
Okay. I've heard that a few times now. Patience seems to be one of those things that everybody needs a little bit more of. Very good. Okay. So we all have these things that we bring into the woods with us that are, I don't know if they're good luck charms or they're pacifiers or they truly make us more successful in the woods. We all seem to have one of these things. What's that one thing for you that you got to have with you or it drives you nuts if you don't have it in your pocket?
It's a little 3-inch stuffed walrus.
Okay.
You asked.
I did ask. It's my own fault. All right. So tell me about the walrus. I have a vending company and we put stuffed animals and cranes and stuff. It's one of my businesses. And, this little 3-inch ugly thing, as a matter of fact, how I ended up with it was the guy who fills the crane says, I don't know what this is. I was going to put it in the crane, but what is it? I said, I don't know either. So actually, we made a big deal out of it. I called the manufacturer and they said, believe it or not, that's supposed to be a walrus. And actually, I have it in my hand right now. I keep it in my, when you talk about the backpack, he's always in there. Yep. And he's the ugliest little stuffed animal you ever saw. And if I don't have him with me, I don't feel the same. Right. We all have them, man. We all have those little things. Nobody's not.
Yeah, I should take a picture and send it to you.
You need to do that. Absolutely. So,
okay. All right, I will.
Of all the hunting tips that are out there, and there are a gazillion, what's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Safety. If you're going in this tree stand, wear a safety vest. Be really careful. We're out there with lethal implements, and that to me is, I believe in erring on the side of caution. And you asked me what kind of stands I use, and I use fresh stands, after they've been out for a year or 2 or 3, and then I don't let a stand go more than 3 years.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. And finally, you're a writer. You've put in lots of your thoughts on paper. Is there anybody that you turn to whose books you enjoy to obtain more knowledge about the outdoors or magazines? Is there anything that you turn to yourself as a writer that helps you?
There's some guys out there. I don't know if turn to. I like the style an awful lot. There was a guy, I don't know if he's probably, I don't think he's put out anything in a few years, but Patrick McManus was always a fun read.
Okay.
He's a funny guy. I like, John Gierach. He's pretty good. If you go to the old timers, Robert Traver was pretty good. Capstick, absolutely classic. So, that's the one thing we have always had in our sport. And one of the things that, inspires me to write is the outdoorsman, it goes back to beginning where we would sit around the campfire and talk. It's kind of like what we did tonight.
Yeah.
And we've always had such a rich history of really good writers. Even Hemingway wrote lots of hunting and fishing stories. So, we seem to be losing that. So that was all. Most of the stuff written now is how to. And I just find it really dry. Once I learn how to do it, I need to read about it more.
Okay. Gotcha. So if you're listening to this show and somebody listening to the show wanted to pick up your book, how do we go about getting it? Where can we find out more information about you?
Okay, this is the plug. Here we go.
Okay.
The book is called The Outdoor Chronicles, True Tales of the Outdoors by Jerry HAMZA. It's put out by Skyhorse Publishing, so it's available in all the major bookstores. You can buy it online at Amazon or even on eBay. It's out on eBay. Or you can go to my website, which is, oddly enough, jerryhamza.com.
Nice.
And if you buy it off my website, I will sign it for you.
Beautiful. And you signed the one that you sent to me as well, and I appreciate that. Well, it's very good. It was a great read, and I'm going to go back and read the fishing sections now because, before we know it, fishing season will be here, and I'll have to get out my fly rods, and I think I'll read a few of your inspiring stories about fly fishing. And hopefully someday I'll return to New York to do a little fly fishing out there, too.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you.
Very cool.
And anybody want some deer taken off the property, just get in touch with me. I'm always looking for new places to pull a string. So.
All right. Very good. Well, Jerry, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks again. Thanks to Jerry for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. Man, he's had quite a journey going from hanging out with Loretta, Lynn, and Johnny Cash and some of the greats of the country music industry all the way up to doing his own thing and being the best friend and agent of George Carlin and now writing this book and telling us about all his journeys in the outdoors and kind of how that brought peace to his mind. He kind of got into that rhythm of the outside that you only really understand if you actually do it. And I think it kind of, brought some calmness to him, to his busy pace of being a manager for a very busy man. And then battled lymphoma and overcame it. It's quite a story.
Yeah, definitely a real interesting story and much appreciated for him for joining us in. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in with us every week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody who's listening to this show right now. And I just can't thank you enough for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. Hey, Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Sure do. Jay, people are always asking, what's something that can make a difference in hunting mature deer or any deer period? And I said, well, if you go to the woods and you don't wear a face mask or some kind of face paint, there's something that's a proven fact that deer can pick out a human face from 25, 30 yards away. So I suggest that you consider getting you a face mask or using some face paint to break up that human face silhouette.
Do you use face paint?
No face paint. I do wear a mask early season, late season. I wear a mask at all times. That's something that I feel naked without if I don't have my mask.
I do notice that most of your posts do involve some kind of a face mask while you're in the woods. So that's all good, man. And you always see deer, so there's something to it. Excellent, man. Very good tip. I think I'm going to give that a shot. So, well, man, where can we find you, Dusty, when you're not hanging out here with me on the mic?
This week you can check me out in Louisville, Kentucky at the ATA show, Jay. If you're going down, look us up. Everybody check us out. And if you're at the ATA, definitely give us a holler if you see us. Stop us. We'll talk to you and introduce ourselves. And we'd love to see everybody that listens.
Absolutely. That would be awesome.
Facebook, you can look me up, facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can also look me up, personal page on Instagram @ChasingAntler. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
The mic, I would say the best place to get a hold of me is jay@bigbuckregistry.com. You can always check us out on iTunes, going to bigbuckregistry.com/iTunes. That's if you're on an Apple device of any sort, iPad, iPhone, anything like that. We have been accepted to the Google Play Store, and they should be launching this month as we speak. So hopefully soon all of our podcasts will be available through the Google Play, which means that if you don't have an Apple phone, you can listen to it on an Android phone. And we know we're missing a piece of the population. But in the meantime, if you can't get to Google Play, and if they haven't launched it yet, you can always check us out on Stitcher, which is available on Android phones, and that's bigbuckregistry.com/Stitcher, STITCHER. You can always check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/BigBuckRegistry. If you'd like to send in a photo of a big deer that you shot during the season, go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all the instructions will be right there for you and tell you everything you have to do to get a photo submitted to us. We don't post them all, but we certainly post a lot of the big ones that come in, or at least big ones for your area. Let's put it that way. If you do like this show and you are on an Apple device, please hit the subscribe button. And if you really, really like this show, hit the search button and do a search for the Big Buck Registry, and then do a review. Leave us a 5-star review if you like this show. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/BigBuckRegistry. And I was just playing around on Instagram the other day, Dusty, and you pointed out that we actually had an Instagram account, and it turns out we have over 6,000 followers. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and we appreciate everybody for following us. And if you haven't checked us out, go to Instagram and look us up at Big Buck Registry.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
Man, that's a great show and a whole lot of big bucks there towards the end. Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott.
And this is the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.